news. Okay. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. This is actually, I already did this where I talked about these little delivery robots, hard to believe delivery bots get the Philly welcome. This was about a robot that got kicked over by a Philadelphian. That's what you get. Remember what happened to Hitchbot when they came to Philly. And I was talking about this a couple weeks ago. I was one of the early people to see these robots, and I put up a short like the day that they launched. I saw one zipping around. Well, then this article came out about people abusing the robots. Well, it was only a matter of time, I knew, before it would come out. Bumped by a delivery bot. Who are you going to call? Botbusters. Who are you going to call? Botbusters. Yeah, so this happened down on Locust Street. About, there's like a limited area where these little robots are running around. You can find them down south of City Hall, like running up and down Locust and Sansom, and there's like a series, like a strip of blocks where they're using them. Yes, Lee Gordon Washington, 25, was at 15th and Locust Streets when an Uber autonomous delivery bot bumped into her from behind. Just tong. Says, I didn't see it coming, and this is what I said. These things are small and short. It's like people are gonna trip over them, but this one just rammed her from behind. It says it kept coming at me like once or twice more. So she says that a knee-jerk reaction, she just kicked it, and after she kicked it, it just kept coming after her like it was attacking her. So she says she was able to walk away when the light changed, but the bot didn't follow her. She says, but ultimately she was fine. She suffered a scratch. She says, still, the whole episode of a malfunctioning robot was in need of reporting. So she went on and was like, well, who do you report being attacked by a robot to? Turns out it's not so easy. Yes, so Avride, the bot's manufacturer, says the autonomous delivery robot weighs about 150 pounds. So, yeah, this isn't like a little piece of plastic, 150-pound robot, and they move at a good clip. I mean, I've seen them going like, 10 miles an hour. You can do the math on that, but it's a pretty good impact if it rams into you. It says it was unclear which government agency is keeping track of autonomous bot complaints, because she complained to the companies, and apparently they don't do anything. But it says here that with no federal agency keeping track of autonomous delivery vehicle complaints, bot-related issues should be reported to state and local regulatory agencies, as if the Philly cops or Product Safety Commission or whatever in Harrisburg, as if they cared. Basically, long story short, there is no oversight. There's nobody keeping track of robots in the public space, and you could call manufacturers, you can call the services, if it's an Uber robot, you can call Uber about it. You can complain to the cops, you can write a letter to your congressman, but really there's nobody looking out for this. I mean, if you get attacked by a robot, you just have to defend yourself. You're on your own. I don't know, if I got run into by a robot, I would see that the only legal thing about here is if you defend yourself against a robot, if you use defensive force against a robot, like if you disable a robot because it attacked you, do you become liable for damaging the robot because it attacked you? Or retaliating against a robot? Like, if you're in the street and somebody punches you, you can punch them back. They punched you first. You can retaliate. It's legal. You can hit them. If a robot punches you, can you smash a robot? Or do they come after you for breaking a robot? If this would have happened to me and the thing would have run into me, I would have disabled that robot. I would have kicked the crap out of the robot. Believe you me. Yeah, I don't know. It is a question that is being answered on the mean streets of Philadelphia as we speak. Speaking of local stuff, I talked about this. I put up a thing on my community page with a picture of a beautiful cherry blossom tree, which we don't have many of in Philadelphia, by the way. We're not loaded with cherry blossoms, but there was a very beautiful cherry blossom tree that was in full bloom. I took a picture of it, and I put something caption like, beautiful to look at, but killing me. Pollen has been off the charts. People are like, oh, the cherry blossom pollen, you shouldn't be allergic to that, Fran. It's like, okay, yeah, it's not this tree. But we have trees in Philadelphia, specific kinds of trees that were picked for, I guess, for their aesthetics, that have turned out to be the bane of Philadelphians. And yeah, when I was in the 1.0 lab, if you remember, I had a line of trees out in front of that shop that were these very trees. I called them shit trees because when they bloom, they smell like cat urine and poo. I mean, it smells like a litter box, but like a litter box the size of a city block. But yeah, so there are certain trees that have been planted all around the city for aesthetic reasons or other reasons that have in recent years become more and more of a bane to Philadelphians. And so I wanted to read this. It says right here, that stench you smell? There may be a fruit at the root of it, yes, and there's a picture of some of the blossoms in question. Yes. In late March and early April, Bradford pear trees don't just adorn Philly sidewalks with their ornamental green leaves and white flowers. They develop quite a stink. Yes, they do. People describe them as rotting fish smell or urine. Yeah. Yes, and so Pamela Morris, Olszewski, I'm just going to put the pin in that, Olszewski. If I get it wrong, Pamela Olszewski, plant collections manager at the Morris Arboretum Gardens, gave her opinion. She says, quote, they give off these smells to attract the flies and beetles that help pollinate them. So, I mean, they create a rotten smell because they're attracting non-traditional pollinators like flies. Like other plants that really smell bad. It says here, caterpillar pear trees, also known as Bradford pears, were brought to the United States from Asia in the early 1900s to help trees with edible pears create resistance to fire and blight, a bacteria that damages trees and makes leaves look burned. The Bradford pear trees were supposed to be genetically identical to these other pear trees, so they brought them in, I guess, the idea that they would cross-pollinate and that they'd have hybrid pears. They wanted to hybridize pears to be resistant to blight is the reason that they started planting these trees. But someone unintentionally made a different cultivator, mixing a piece of a Bradford pear tree with another tree, made a hybrid by cross-pollinating with a nearby Bradford pear tree, making them capable of producing the fruit. So they got their hybrid. But the unintentional consequence of this was that people thought that this was a perfect sterile tree until another genetically different tree got close enough, and now they have cross-pollinated and none of them were sterile any longer. And then evolution takes place, and the hybridized trees, which didn't end up curing the blight problem, mutated, and in the late 1980s to early 90s, the rotten scent began overwhelming Philly noses. So the current kind of trees, the shit trees of the pear tree that was created to fight the blight. But this is what we have now all over the city are these mutated trees. Once flies or beetles pollinate them, the trees yield clusters of fruit that look like hard, tiny green apples. Birds spread the seeds, the sidewalks and backyards no longer have Bradford pear trees. So now it's like basically this is... So we got them all over the city. In 2021, Pennsylvania added pear trees to its noxious weed list, saying that it was widely established in Pennsylvania and cannot feasibly be eradicated. In 2024, the state was one of more than a dozen that banned plantings of Callery pear trees. It's hard to know exactly how many Bradford pear trees inhabit Pennsylvania, but the tree is so resistant that so long as seeds are in the area, they will reinvade, according to Penn State's blah blah. So they're just so hardy, we can't get rid of them, and yep, the shit trees every spring. Breathe deep. That is the smell of Philly. Stand on the local front, sort of semi-local. This is every state, but Philly invades every state with the Liberty Bell. Look at that. That there is 50, counting 50 operational Liberty Bell reproductions. Yeah, so I didn't even know about this, but this photograph was taken in 1950. In 1950, the U.S. Treasury Department made reproductions of the Liberty Bell, one for every state, for a savings bond drive. Well, that makes sense. U.S. savings bonds, let's make 50 bells and give every state a bell and they'll buy savings bonds? But anyway, these were all made in France at the Picard. It's two C's, Picard. At the Jean-Luc Picard Foundry in France. And apparently these reproduction bells are identical to the Liberty Bell in every way, except that they are not damaged. Oh, they do have a faux crack. So they did... the crack in the Liberty Bell is actually where the crack was filed out, and then to keep the crack from continuing to propagate past where it was filed out, they put a hot rivet in the slot. Because when you ring the bell, the two sides of the, you cut a slot in it, and when you ring the bell, it's going like this, which is just working the crack up the bell. So to prevent it from propagating, so that they could continue to ring the bell, they put a hot rivet in there in the slot, so that above a certain point it wouldn't continue. But I don't know. Apparently, the original Liberty Bell cracked on the first ring. So Pass and Stowe. Pass and Stowe, I mean, they made a lot of bells, but the Liberty Bell was a bell that they really couldn't make, because the first one they made cracked as soon as they rang it. It was melted down and recast all over again, and the second one they delivered, and it cracked after it was installed in the bell tower. But they don't know when the crack actually started, but apparently in 1950 the Treasury Department ordered all of these reproduction bells to be made, and every state got one. And so for the 250th, they were trying to hunt down all 50 of these bells, and it turns out that it was not an easy task. According to the National Park Service, the original Liberty Bell was 70% copper, 25% tin, and small amounts of lead, gold, arsenic, silver, and zinc. In a bell, those other metals amount to impurities. So yeah, I mean, obviously they had an unclean foundry, and when they melted down the original, well, apparently the metal they used to cast both bells, the one that cracked in the first try and the ones that cracked the second time, the one that we have now, the Liberty Bell. Yes, I must admit that the original Liberty Bell is a very poor quality bell, metallurgically speaking. The reproduction bells they made in 1950 were very specific. A very specific alloy of bronze called Arraine, specific kind of bronze. 78% copper, 22% tin. The Treasury bells toured the country on their backs of a flatbed Ford trucks equipped with loudspeakers festooned with red, white, and blue. Oh yeah, that's oh boy, that's so 1950s. Yeah. So yeah, at the end of the drive, they gifted the bells to 48. Well, at the time, 48 states and 2 outlying territories that became states, Alaska and Hawaii. They all got these bells, but they got no guidance or funds to preserve them. So basically, the states were left to just, here's your bell, bye. So a lot of them have deteriorated. So more than half of the bells have spent most of their lives outdoors in the weather. Time, neglect, and exposure to the elements have taken their toll. Pun intended, get it? Taking their toll on the bells. So the article clarified that the reproduction bells were not cracked. They had, it said at the front of the article, down to the cracks. But no, they painted a crack onto the bells. The bells were not cracked, they painted a faux crack on the bells. The bells were not made with a crack in them. Big difference. The ones that were stored outdoors, the painted on cracks have fallen off, so they don't have the crack. They don't have the faux cracks anymore. Some of the painted on cracks have faded or disappeared completely. Other bells are displayed without their clappers or yokes, or in steel frames that prevent them from being rung. But yeah, the article goes on to say, they're trying to track down all the bells. Some of them are kind of AWOL. Try as they might, it would be nearly impossible for these Liberty Bell fans to check all the replicas off their list. 3 replicas remain totally unavailable to the public this anniversary year. But yeah, if you want to see the original Liberty Bell, it's on display for everyone to see for free, right there across from Independence Hall. They built a special building for it, and you don't even have to go into the building to see the Liberty Bell because they have an observation window outside. So if you're on the south side of the building, if you're facing Independence Hall, right across the street, right across Chestnut Street, you can. There's a little observation window. You can just go up to the window and you can see the Liberty Bell right there. You don't even have to wait in line with the photo op people. You can just look at it right there from outside. No fuss, no muss. Yep. All right. Well, I talked about this last week about how I was stunned to find out that GameStop was making a move for eBay. Well, it turns out I wasn't the only one who was gobsmacked, because it's been all over the press that people are like, how the F is GameStop going to require eBay? This doesn't smell right. How is the SEC going to approve this? Yada yada. Apparently, everybody's been asking the same questions that I asked in the video I made last week. It says even fans are befuddled by GameStop CEO's proposal to merge with eBay. And so this past week, he's been on like a publicity tour, on being interviewed on television and on radio and on podcasts and stuff, explaining about how he's going to go about doing this. And even after like investment experts and everything have been listening to everything, they still don't understand how this could work. But as a consequence, some of the major investors in GameStop have been dumping their stock, and so the stock value of GameStop has dropped. And as a kickback consequence, even though eBay has absolutely nothing to do with this, the eBay stock value dropped like 12% as of like Tuesday, 14%. eBay stock was down 14% as of Tuesday. So eBay's been suffering. Even though they've got nothing to do with this, they're not even involved. It's like they haven't accepted an offer. They haven't announced that they're for sale. This whole thing just seems like some kind of boondoggle. The GameStop CEO, Ryan Cohen, this just seems like a Wolf of Wall Street type thing. But the bad part of this for eBay, and I've got my own complaints about eBay, but the bad thing about this is that this is actually hurting eBay. And if people like were in on GameStop stock as part of that, thing like back from 2021, they're suffering too, because I think in a couple of weeks this whole thing will be history. GameStop cannot buy eBay.
130, 130, 130, 130, 130, 130, 130, 130, 130, 130, 130, 1 p.m.
Switching gears to everyone's favorite topic, what all the kids are talking about, AI. Oh, AI, what have you been up to? Let's talk about this week in AI stuff. An article of AI that is so condensed that I don't even actually need the rest of the article. I just need the first 2 paragraphs. Forget about why countries are stockpiling more gold. Pay no attention to the person stockpiling gold in the corner of the room. That is no relevance. No, we're talking about spending on AI has broken a record. That's right. Dateline Seattle. For the past 2 years, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Meta have repeatedly set records for how much they have been spending on artificial intelligence. And on Wednesday, this was May 1st, this is what I'm talking about last week. On Wednesday, the 4 giants did it again. In the first 3 months of the year, that's the first 3 months of this year, the 4 companies reported in their financial results they plowed a total of $130.65 billion into capital expenditures, largely spending on data centers that power AI. That figure, which was another record, was more than 3 times what the Manhattan Project cost to develop nuclear bombs, and 71% higher than what the tech giants spent in the same quarter of a year earlier. So it's all up there. So yeah, more than the Manhattan Project, more than the Apollo program, all in speculation. The reason this is so important is that all this money being invested, these are public companies. This is stock market money. This is speculation. If the AI bubble bursts, if these companies do not reach their goal of having a general intelligence, first of all, it's got to be very clear they're never going to recoup the investment that they've already put in. That they're never going to make back that money. But they're putting all that money in this veritable moonshot project of the first person, the first CEO. I'm talking about the first person, the first CEO to have possession of a general intelligence will, I guess, by their own dream, be omniscient. This is why these companies are in this war against each other to try to be the first to get a general intelligence. They have this belief, all the CEOs of these companies, Bezos, Musk, Altman, all these CEOs, they all think that the one to get the brass ring, that brass ring turns into the ring, the ultimate prize, that if they get general intelligence, that CEO that owns that company, that CEO will have omniscience, a power beyond all price, beyond all measure. What's more likely to happen is before they actually get to general intelligence, they could tank the entire American economy. The stock market could just implode. It's all built on speculation. If these AI tools don't deliver, we're looking at a crash. And so on the other side of that, of authors, readers, and AI, a growing number of writers face unfounded suspicions of AI use. Others use AI without disclosing it. And so if you like to read, as I do, if you own many books, as I do, this is something that you've been thinking about, at least for the last year, and much more now. If you buy a new book, are you reading something that was written by a person, an author, or are you reading something that's been written by a machine? The answer is probably, statistically, probably a 50% chance that a combination of both. Because as it turns out, there's this battle going on amongst publishers and authors battling about AI, because publishers who want to use AI tools, like for proofreading stuff, copywriting, they don't want to pay humans to review a book, to proofread a book, to check it for spelling and grammatical errors. Why not just pump it through a language model, have the AI make the decisions, make all the changes, and authors that are like, I don't want my book, my published book, to have been edited by a machine. I don't want it to be checked over by a machine. I don't want my punctuation changed by a machine. Also, journalists have been battling a new kind of language model tool, which is being used by news agencies, especially in the competitive online news feed world, where these tiny little news apps are trying to get one up on the Associated Press and Bloomberg and stuff like that. And so they've been employing these kind of quick and dirty language models to take like Associated Press feed articles that are written by people and have bylines, a human byline, a person wrote this article, and they're taking that human written article and they're compressing it down to a little quip, like a 1 paragraph or a 2 paragraph or whatever, so that they can get on ground news or whatever. And journalists who are discovering these paraphrased versions of the articles that they wrote they're in a total uproar. And they're calling plagiarism. And so these newsfeed companies are saying it's not plagiarism. We've just taken your article and we've just trimmed it down to make it fit. It's what any newspaper does. We've made it fit the column. Like, no, you took my article, you rewrote it, you used my words, and so in many cases, just because of the way that the news world works, in retaliation, they're demanding that their names be stricken, that the bylines be removed. They don't want their names on these repurposed AI-generated hacks of their well-written pieces, and I don't blame them. But language models, AI tools, they're absolutely shaking up the publishing business. The publishing business has been teetering for decades as people buy fewer books, as there become fewer outlets for books, as the number of bookstores shrink, as the number of readers shrink, as the number of people who buy books shrinks, and also as reading, in air quotes, goes from being something that you do in a physical form to something you do in a virtual form. Competition for having like a bottomless scroll for reading material on e-readers and such has just been putting AI front and center to create fodder for the endless scroll for readers. Because of the uproar about AI and in authorship, there's been a lot of scrutiny about every new thing published. Books, articles. Is this written by a person? Did the person use their own brain to write this? It's not a new argument because ghostwriters are as old as writing. Especially like with the celebrity autobiography, is always the question, is this really written by the celebrity, or is there a ghostwriter? Did someone write this for them, or did someone have a hand in writing this for them? It's an age-old question, but the question of did a machine help write this book, it's basically just assumed that yes, a machine helped write this book, and so authors are on the defenses to try to prove that they did not have a machine write this book. Last fall, Antonio Bricio, an engineering consultant who lives in Guadalajara, Mexico, finished a draft of his new novel, science fiction thriller. Okay, so he wrote a novel. He writes it's a very taxing process to get a publisher. So he's talking about how hard it is to get a book published. It is. You gotta, take no for a living. So what happened was, story broke of books that were AI written and big uproar. His book got canceled online. That's the thing. And so he says, I don't use AI tools, but my book's been canceled because there are these AI detection programs that people can get. I guess there's open source ones and ones that people can pay for. Authors have been using these detector tools to basically apply them to their own written work, only to find out that their own personal written work doesn't pass the test and ends up getting flagged. I'm like, well, how can I release this book if I've got this free online tool that, is the AI bullshit meter? I put it on the book that I personally have written, and it says that there's a 100% chance that my book has been written by AI, and it says that my book is an AI written book, and it's not. How can I even publish? How can I sell to a publisher? They're going to put it through the same machine. It's going to say, oh, it's an AI book. Well, this is what's happening all over the publishing world. So, yeah, and that says, what if publishers or agents start running these AI tools on everybody? Everybody's going to walk on eggshells from now on, which I guess is true. We're reaching this era of distrust with no easy way to prove the veracity of our own writing, says Andrea Bartz, a thriller writer, who's lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit brought by the authors against Anthropic. I guess the Anthropic makes a tool that has been dissing real writers, which agreed to pay, quite a hefty settlement, $1.5 billion. That's, and they agreed to it. Whoa, ka-ching! No reason to write anymore. Now you can self-publish. Congratulations. Bartz had recently put some of her own writing into ACE, that's Anthropic's AI checker, and was startled when the program labeled her work as 82% AI generated. The program then offered a solution, quote, would you like to humanize your text, end quote? Oh, snap. When Rachel Louise Atkin, who reviews books on Goodreads, Instagram, and TikTok for thousands of followers, first heard about Shy Girl on social media, that's the book that got, outed as being AI generated. Sounded like a book she would love, a gripping and twisted feminist horror story, blah, blah, blah. If I knew for definite that something was written by AI, I would have avoided it, she said. I think we should be able to make a choice as to what we want to read or something that was written by AI or not. But, the truth being that she liked the book. So that's the thing, when AI written books are passing literary tests, like literary critics are enjoying these books, liking them, and then you find out that there's just a guy behind the curtain and the guy is a robot. And this is like the inverse Wizard of Oz. It boils down to the subjective nature of writing, of enjoying writing, and particularly the very, very subjective nature of criticism. What is good? When bots woo the critics, it's the question for our age. Machines just know us better than we know ourselves. Who will win? But tacking on well, it's not quite the caboose. This is sort of the diner car of the AI thing. A lot of talk about data centers, and particularly if you go on YouTube, there have been some prominent YouTubers that have done some debunking videos about how data centers aren't going to consume water resources. They're not water-hungry places. That is a myth. That's a lie. Well, apparently not in Chesco, because this article is written about a data center that hasn't even been built yet, but it's due to be built in Chesco, Chester County. But people are protesting it because they don't want data centers allowed. They consume a lot of resources. The power bills locally go up. It says here, under the original 2024 plans, which apparently they had revised the plans to try to appease locals, but they've gone back to their original plans, and now they've decided that, well, the locals aren't happy with any of the revisions, so screw them. We're going to build the original plan, the big, loud, power-hungry, water-hungry plant. It says here that the original plans that they said, which is 1.5 million square feet across 2 buildings, would include antenna yards, microwave towers, and cooling towers that rely on evaporating 3 million gallons of water per day. 3 million gallons per day. That's just one data center. So, yeah, they consume a great deal of water. And that's not like water that's run through cooling and then like put back into the environment. That is evaporated water. So, you imagine your average river and tributary, and you have strings of data centers, up and down the rivers. Well, downriver, just like happens in California, water becomes a resource, and you find that the river is getting thinner and thinner and thinner the further downstream you go, because that water is being evaporated away to cool servers. It's a fact. It's not a myth. Not a myth. So here's the caboose. The AI caboose is this. This is an interesting... This is going into the near future. And it's the age of electricity, and America isn't ready. This is a diagram of the power grid, America's power grid, and the little circles in the map are areas where data centers are cropping up. So it's basically showing the distribution of power and the distribution of load. And in particular, the Northeast Corridor, the megalopolis, the Northeast megalopolis, yeah, probably the largest conglomeration, other than Texas, the largest conglomeration of data centers is going to be in the Northeast Corridor. We're right in the middle of it, right? The interesting thing here is projecting into the future. This is power usage, how power usage has changed. And this diagram down here in the bottom, very interesting. That line in the middle is today. And to the left is going into the past, what things have been used, where the majority of electrical usage has gone to. See lighting at the very, very top there in the 20th century. And then ahead here, looking to the future, they're speculating that EV charging of batteries is going to be the number one load. Cooling, second only to EV charging. So this is like the majority of the future of power consumption. Cooling and EV charging. Heating will be third. And then refrigeration, dryer, stuff like that, appliances. But yeah. Now, the other part of this is, this is what I'm concerned with. All this EV charging, that means that the number of batteries. Let's think about the cubic footage of lithium-ion batteries. This is why we have to have a replacement for lithium-ion batteries. Solid-state batteries, they say, are in the future. Obviously, it would be the future to have solid-state batteries, but even solid-state batteries wouldn't be immune from problems. It would change the nature of the problem of batteries, but if you're talking about energy storage in any form, energy storage means power storage, means that you've got potential. And whenever you have high potential, you have danger. So, going into the future, if we don't have a replacement for lithium-ion batteries, or we don't have non-flammable batteries of some type, non-explosive batteries of some type, you can see in the future we're going to have more and more problems. I'm very leery of storing power on massive scales. I've talked about this before. Every year, the lab acquires more lithium-ion batteries, not by choice, but by design, by default, because you can't get a little appliance, a little tool that's going to take a regular, like, rechargeable battery, like that you could put in a nickel metal hydride cell or something. And it's going to have a lithium-ion cell either built into it, or it's going to have to take a lithium-ion pack that you're going to have to charge. You're not going to have a choice if you're going to want the tool, the piece of equipment, the item. You're going to be getting another lithium-ion battery or a set of them. And as we have more and more and more of these batteries, how many of us are prepared for the statistical inevitability of failure of a battery? How many of you watching this video are prepared? You have a firebox, you have fire gloves, where you could actually pick up a burning phone spewing deadly gases. You could put it into a container where it could burn out of control, and you could take that container outside where it could safely just, destroy itself to extinction, and nobody would get hurt. How many of you watching this video have all those tools at your disposal for what would, in the course of your lifetime, be the inevitable event? Because statistically, they say 1 in a million batteries fail. But they say, over the course of a human lifetime, you're going to be encountering 1 million batteries. You're going to be in proximity to a failure, either at home or at work. How many people are prepared? How are you prepared for the inevitable problem? I lose sleep over this. Because, some of the batteries that I got are pretty big. The ones in laptops, tablets, the ones in tools, drills, and if you got a whole, tool set, jigsaws, other kinds of saws, drills, other kinds of, routers, stuff like that, they're all now going to take a pack, and you're not going to have one pack to go around. Each one of them, now you've got like 6, 7 packs. And, if you want to use the tools, you've got to have the packs charged. So now you've got a constant rotation of packs that are always under charge and always, have a high potential. Just figure out the math. Years, batteries. It's just like these other stories of disaster where there's, the technology comes out and there's no contingency plan. With all these batteries that are going to be in the world, garages full of electric cars. What's the plan? What's the plan for garages that have hundreds of electric cars in them and charging stations? Does the building have a plan for a car that just goes? Or does the whole garage of cars just go because one car goes? How do you contain a car that has just gone into flames? What do you do? What do you do? So yeah, I do worry. And so should you. We should all have a plan. Speaking of going to hell, here we go. Gates of hell start to dim, but fallout is uncertain. Right there, that flaming pit, that is a real place. The Gates of Hell. It is a pit that has been on fire for decades. It might be the world's most baffling tourist attraction, a roaring pit of fire the size of a soccer field sitting in a barren desert. The Darvazet crater, known as the Gates of Hell, lies deep in territory in Turkmenistan. The crater has been burning for decades. Infrared imaging data taken this year shows that the fires within the natural gas crater are on the decline. How it was created, it's sort of speculatory. It was thought that during the Soviet occupation that they were drilling for oil, and they hit a pocket of natural gas which caught fire, exploded, and then the whole depression caved in, and it's been burning ever since. But yeah, its origin is mysterious. According to local lore, Soviet geologists were drilling for oil in the 60s or 70s, and they hit a natural gas deposit. And it says...
It's 2 o'clock p.m. 2 o'clock p.m. 2 o'clock p. 2 o'clock p. 2 o'clock p.m.
I only do that once a day. Oh, it must make sense. But yeah, so basically, their satellite readings are saying that the fire's going out, but they said it's not really going to go out. They think that the supply of methane for this is bottomless. And they said just because the flames go out, it's not going to be better environmentally, because the raw methane is actually worse for the environment than the carbon gases that are produced from burning methane. So it's the Carbon Mapper's last reading collected in October 2025 showed that the methane emissions from the pit have increased to 1,900 kilograms per hour, higher than 2022 or 2025 average. It might not be burning as much, but it's belching just as much methane. But they said that even being near it is almost impossible. It says here, the heat is so intense, you can roast marshmallows or brew coffee over a fresh crack of the crater floor. People will, I guess, go into the pit with fire suits to take measurements. But yeah, it's whoa. Gates of Hell, indeed. Indeed. I'm just going to end it on this because we're going way over time. This is so sad. This is sad. Even an army of Kens couldn't save this Barbie event. Oh, there we go, right there. A photo taken at what was supposed to be an absolutely unforgettable Barbie event, which turned out to be just a microbus in a cavern. Oh my God. The building of an attraction as a life-size Barbie dream house led fans to believe that they would be physically stepping into the doll's iconic home to play around and pose for pictures. Wah, wah, wah. They also expected a neon-filled 1980s disco roller rink and space-themed exhibit titled Beyond the Stars. Doll lovers from around the world bought tickets expecting a weekend of quality entertainment, photo ops, and pink galore. But what they got was, you're already ahead of me. The reality at Barbie Dreamfest, which was held March 27th to the 29th, Broward County Convention Center in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, was a lot less rosy. Yeah. Oh, the dream house turned out to be a 2D cardboard cutout with a pink Volkswagen bus parked in front of it. Guests were not allowed inside of the vehicle. Oh, yes. This is reminiscent of the Willy Wonka factory that had the the unhappy woman who was the singular Oompa Loompa and a couple little flasks inside of a huge room. Oh my God. So yeah, the space exhibit consisted of an oversized Barbie box decorated with a ringed planet. Oh my God. Oh, the roller disco was a penned-off area in the center's concrete floor with metal beams forming a tent with no canvas overhead. Eventually, the event organizers did put up a small disco ball, people said. Failed conventions and festivals have become something of their own genre in recent years, including a now infamous Fry Festival, which conjures images of festival goers standing in tropical island with only cheese and sandwiches and stuff. And the Willy Wonka's chocolate thing going around. I didn't mention that, but man, you gotta be careful. You never know what's gonna be waiting for you when you buy that expensive ticket to go to that amazing festival. get your Instagram pictures. Maybe we have to lower our expectations. It might be that we have to go back to Laserium. Do you remember the laser shows that were big in the early 80s? Where you would go to a planetarium or a movie theater or an abandoned live action theater, and you'd sit in a seat at midnight and they'd play Pink Floyd and, you know, they'd play Spyro Gyra and, you know, fusion music and funk, and they'd have like a big laser show, and you'd pay money to see the laser show, and sometimes you go in there and maybe there'd just be like one laser, just like doing maybe it would do like a flower, and then it would do like a square, and you'd stare at this one laser, and maybe they'd run a smoke machine, so it'd be like more amazing because you'd see the laser cutting through the smoke, and then you get overwhelmed with the smoke. I think expectations are much greater now than they were back in the old days of stoners and laser shows. Do not look at the laser show with remaining eye. All right, kids, we're way over time.
2:07 p.m.
Oh, it's 2:07 p.m. now.
2:07 p.m.
2:07 p.m.
2:07 p.m. 2:07 p.m.
2:07 p.m.
2:07 p.m.
Yeah, okay.
In the lab. That's where I work. In the lab. Go berserk. In my lab. That's where I work. That's what you're watching. Friend love. That's what I'm doing. Working at the bench again. I'm Fran.